A firefighter's answer to one question made Steve Harvey stop breathing. The man standing at that podium had burns covering 30% of his body, scars that told a story he'd never shared publicly. When Steve asked if he regretted saving 3 children from a burning building, the firefighter's response wasn't what anyone expected. It wasn't heroic. It wasn't modest. It was devastatingly human. And what happened next, when Steve brought out the 3 children he'd saved, now grown, made everyone in that studio understand that some debts can never be repaid. They can only be honored. Marcus Bennett stood at the family podium on a Tuesday afternoon in Atlanta, his posture straight despite the visible scars that traced up his neck. At 31, he had the weathered look of someone who'd seen things most people only experience in nightmares. His hands showed patchwork-healed skin, evidence of third-degree burns. Beside him stood his wife Jennifer, his younger sister Ashley, his brother-in-law Thomas, and his mother Patricia. They'd traveled from Seattle to be on America's favorite game show. What Marcus didn't know was that in the studio audience sat 3 people who owed him everything. 3 siblings who'd been children when Marcus had run into a burning building 7 years ago and emerged with them in his arms, his uniform on fire, his skin melting. They were alive because Marcus had made a choice that cost him nearly everything. 7 years ago, Marcus Bennett was a rookie firefighter in his 2nd year with the Seattle Fire Department. 24 years old, still idealistic about saving lives. On a cold February night, the call came in at 2:47 a.m. House fire. Multiple occupants possibly trapped inside. Marcus's engine company was first to arrive. The house was fully engulfed, flames shooting from every window on the 2nd floor. The battalion chief assessed the situation. The structure was too unstable. The fire too advanced. They'd let it burn and focus on preventing spread. It was the right call by every protocol. Except Marcus couldn't hear protocols over the screaming. Children screaming from the 2nd floor. He saw the battalion chief turn away to coordinate the defensive attack. And Marcus made a choice. He ran into that building. No one told him to. He just went. Through the front door, upstairs, already beginning to collapse, into hell itself. He found them in a bedroom. 3 children, Emma, 8, Luke, 6, Sophia, 4. Their parents had gone to the store, leaving them with a teenage babysitter who'd escaped through a window. The children were trapped. Marcus grabbed Emma and Luke under each arm. He told Sophia to hold onto his coat, and he ran, through flames eating the walls, down stairs that gave way beneath his feet. His protective gear was designed for fire, but not for this. Not for sustained exposure to temperatures that exceeded human survival. He felt his coat ignite, felt the heat penetrate, felt pain unlike anything he'd ever known. He made it out with 3 children clutched against him. His uniform was on fire. EMTs rushed forward. Someone threw him to the ground, rolled him to extinguish the flames. He heard screaming and realized it was coming from him. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Emma looking at him with terror in her eyes. Marcus spent 4 months in the burn unit, 30% of his body covered in 3rd-degree burns. His hands, his arms, his neck, part of his face. The doctors told him he was lucky to be alive. He didn't feel lucky as he underwent surgery after surgery, skin grafts, reconstructive procedures, physical therapy that made him cry from pain, because Marcus had violated protocol. He'd endangered himself by making an unauthorized entry into a condemned structure. The department held hearings. Some called him a hero. Others called him reckless. They let him keep his job, but with a reprimand in his file. And Marcus, looking at his scarred hands, wondered if he'd made the right choice. The physical scars healed as much as they were going to, but the emotional scars ran deeper. Marcus returned to work, but something had changed. He second-guessed every decision, hesitated when he used to act on instinct. The pain from his injuries was constant. He took disability retirement at 28, unable to continue doing the job he'd loved. He struggled with depression, with anger, with the question that haunted him. Was it worth it? He'd saved 3 children, but at what cost? He couldn't do his job anymore. His body hurt constantly. Some days, the physical pain was so bad he could barely function. And on those days, Marcus would wonder if he'd made a terrible mistake. He never contacted the family of the children he'd saved, never wanted recognition. When the department wanted to give him a medal, he refused it. When reporters wanted interviews, he declined. He didn't want to be called a hero. Heroes don't spend every day wishing they could go back and make a different choice. When the Family Feud invitation came, it was Jennifer's idea. Something fun. A distraction. Marcus agreed reluctantly. As they drove to Atlanta, he tried not to think about that February night, 7 years ago. The game started with typical Family Feud energy. The Bennett family played against the Williams family from Texas. Marcus was quiet during introductions. Steve Harvey noticed the scars immediately. He'd been briefed by the producers. He knew what was coming. The game progressed through several rounds. Marcus hadn't answered any questions yet, but in the 4th round, Steve deliberately called on Marcus. "Marcus, my man, I notice you've been quiet. Let's get you in the game." He paused. "Before we do this question, I gotta ask. Those scars, brother, what's your story?" The studio fell quiet. Marcus's jaw tightened. "I was a firefighter. There was a fire. I got burned." Steve wasn't letting it go. "A fire? That's it? That's all you're gonna tell me?" Marcus looked uncomfortable. "It was 7 years ago. I was a rookie, made some choices, got hurt, that's all." Steve set down his cards. "Choices? What kind of choices?" Marcus took a deep breath. "There was a house fire. Kids were trapped inside. The building was too unstable to enter. Protocol said to let it burn. I went in anyway." His voice was flat, as if he was reporting facts, not describing the worst night of his life. "You went in anyway," Steve repeated slowly. And I got the kids out. 3 of them. But I got burned doing it. 30% of my body. 3rd-degree burns. Multiple surgeries. Had to retire at 28. Haven't been able to work since. Live with chronic pain every day." Steve's expression changed. This wasn't performance anymore. "Marcus, those 3 children you saved, they alive today because of you?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah, they're alive." "And you," Steve continued, "you paying the price every day, living with pain, unable to do the job you loved. So, I gotta ask you, do you regret it? Do you wish you hadn't gone into that building?" The question hung in the air. The studio was completely silent. Marcus looked down at his scarred hands. When he looked back up, his eyes were wet. "Every single day," he whispered. The audience gasped. "Every day, I wake up, and I wonder what my life would be like if I'd followed protocol. I'd still be a firefighter. I wouldn't be in pain. I wouldn't see people staring at my scars. I wouldn't have to take disability." His voice cracked. "People call me a hero. But heroes don't regret their choices. Heroes don't lie awake at night wondering if they made a mistake. So, yeah, I regret it. I regret that I can't do the job I loved. I regret that my wife has to help me on bad pain days." He paused. "But I'd do it again. Every time. Because those 3 kids are alive. And that's worth every surgery, every day of pain, every scar. I regret what it cost me. But I don't regret that they're alive." Steve's eyes were glistening. He turned away for a moment, composing himself. When he turned back, his voice was thick with emotion. "Marcus, there's something you need to know. Those 3 children you saved, Emma, Luke, Sophia, they're not children anymore. They're 15, 13, and 11 now. And they're here. They're in this studio, and they've been waiting 7 years to tell you something. Subscribe and leave a comment because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead." Marcus's face went white. "What?" Steve gestured to the audience. "Emma, Luke, Sophia, and their parents. Would you please stand up?" In the 3rd row, 5 people stood. A teenage girl with tears streaming down her face, 2 younger children, and their parents. Marcus couldn't move, couldn't speak. Steve walked to them. "Emma, you were 8 years old when Firefighter Bennett carried you out of that burning house. What do you want to say to him?" Emma's voice shook, but was clear. "Mr. Bennett, you saved my life. You saved my brother and sister. I'm alive because of you. I just got accepted to college. I'm going to study medicine. I'm going to be a doctor. And every patient I save, that's because you saved me first. You gave me life. You gave me everything." Steve moved to Luke. "Luke, you were 6. What do you remember?" Luke, now 13, spoke clearly. "I remember being so scared. I remember thinking we were going to die. And then I remember you. You picked me up. Your coat was on fire, but you didn't put me down. You carried me through the fire. You were burning, but you didn't drop me. You saved us, even though it was killing you. Young Sophia spoke next. Her voice was small but fierce. I don't remember a lot from that night, but I remember your face. And I remember that you came back for me. You could have taken my brother and sister and left, but you came back for me. I think about that every day. The parents spoke then, both crying. The father, Jonathan, could barely get the words out. We almost lost everything that night. We were at the store when we got the call. We watched firefighters spray water from outside. They said it was too dangerous to enter. We were screaming for someone to save our babies. And then we saw you come out of that building. You were on fire, but you had our children. All 3 of them. He struggled to continue. We tried to find you in the hospital. They told us you didn't want visitors. We wanted to thank you. Because you didn't just save 3 children. You saved our family, our future. They're alive. They're thriving. They're becoming amazing humans. And it's because you made a choice that cost you everything. Steve walked back to Marcus, who was openly crying now. Marcus, look at them. Really look at them. Marcus lowered his hands and looked at the family. Emma was holding up her college acceptance letter. Luke was wearing a Boy Scout uniform. Sophia was holding a drawing of a firefighter surrounded by hearts. You've been living with regret, Steve said, living with the cost of what you did. So, I'm going to ask you again. Now that you see them, was it worth it? Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears streaming. Steve wasn't done. Marcus, these folks have been trying to find you for 7 years. They've been carrying something too. Not regret, gratitude, a debt they can never repay. And they wanted you to know that your choice mattered. Jonathan spoke again. We've established a foundation, the Marcus Bennett Foundation for Burn Victims. We started it 3 years ago. It provides support for firefighters and first responders who've been injured in the line of duty. We've helped over 50 firefighters so far, and it's all in your name. Steve turned to Marcus. And that's not all. The Seattle Fire Department wants you to know something. Your reprimand has been removed from your file. The chief is here. He wants to present you with the Medal of Valor that you refused 7 years ago. And he wants to offer you a position as a trainer, teaching the next generation of firefighters. The fire chief walked onto the stage in full dress uniform. He approached Marcus with a medal. Firefighter Bennett, 7 years ago, you violated protocol. By the book, you were wrong, but by every measure that actually matters, you were right. You saw children who needed saving, and you saved them. That's what firefighters do. We want you back, teaching others what you showed us, that sometimes being a hero means paying a price you never expected to pay. He pinned the medal on Marcus's shirt. The studio erupted. Emma, Luke, and Sophia ran down and threw their arms around Marcus. He held them, these children who weren't children anymore, and he cried, not from regret, not from pain, but from the overwhelming realization that his choice had been worth every scar. Steve stood back. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Marcus, you told me you regret what your choice cost you, but look around. Emma's going to be a doctor. Luke's going to be a leader. Sophia's going to be an artist. They're alive. They're thriving. And every person they impact, that's because you ran into fire when everyone else ran away. The episode became one of the most watched in Family Feud history. The Marcus Bennett Foundation now provides support to over 300 injured first responders annually. Marcus took the position as training instructor with the Seattle Fire Department. Emma did become a doctor, specializing in pediatric emergency medicine. Luke joined the fire department as soon as he turned 18, wearing Marcus's number on his helmet. Sophia became an artist whose paintings depict first responders as heroes. Marcus still lives with pain. The scars didn't go away, but he doesn't regret anymore. He looks at his scarred hands and remembers what they carried out of that fire. He looks at pictures of Emma at medical school, Luke in his firefighter uniform, Sophia at her art show, and he knows. His choice cost him everything he thought he wanted, but it gave him something better: purpose, meaning. Steve Harvey keeps a photo from that day. It shows Marcus surrounded by Emma, Luke, and Sophia. The caption reads, "This is what heroism looks like when the uniform comes off." Because that's what people forget about heroes. They're not just the moment of courage, they're all the moments after. Marcus chooses worth it every single day. And that's the real heroism. Share and subscribe. Because Marcus Bennett's story isn't just about running into a burning building. It's about living with the choice you made when everything was on fire. It's about carrying scars that remind you every day what courage costs. It's about 3 children who got to grow up because someone decided their lives were worth any price. And it's about the moment a firefighter who thought he'd made a terrible mistake finally understood that some debts can never be repaid. They can only be honored.